Good evening, everyone. It is a little after 6 p.m. on September 9th, 2019, and we are continuing our test of the Astell&Kern Acro L1000 desktop amplifier and DAC that was given to us by the Greek gods themselves. The Greek gods came down from Olympus, and they handed Astell&Kern the technology needed to create this masterpiece. I'm kidding. Nothing like that happened. Although, Astell&Kern would very much like you to believe that's exactly what happened. In Astell&Kern's mind, this $900 piece of unit is a godsend. Literally, it is a godsend. I mean, look at this. The design concept, they're talking about the golden ratio and the Parthenon of Athens. Yeah, whatever. So we already did the bass test in the last video regarding the L1000, and I told you that the bass on the L1000 is lacking substantially. In fact, I would never recommend this unit for bass. I don't care if you're a bass head or not a bass head. If you just like to enjoy bass as it was mastered into the actual song, this is not the unit to get. It is simply woefully under bass. It's the only way I can explain it. And the irritation level to me is to such a degree that I am already on the negative side, and I have to try to remain middle. I have to stay in the middle ground. And I think that's a little appropriate because today we are going to test the mids. We're going to test the mids frequency. But before we get there, I want to talk about what Astell&Kern says this thing can actually do. I mean, what's the design for? For example, if you look up the 789 or the 788 from Monolith, they tell you that those particular amplifiers are made, tuned, produced specifically for low distortion, crystal clear sound, for analyzing your music and things of that nature. And so now you have an actual basis for a test. You know what to test for, right? So you can go to the 789 or the 788, and you can test it, and you say, you're right or you're wrong. This is not particularly reference class. This is not particularly clean, whatever. So in that same vein, what does Astell&Kern say about this particular thing beyond the whole Greek mythology? It says nothing. This thing says nothing. Astell&Kern have produced a product and given zero indication what it's supposed to be used for. I have no idea what they're doing. So all they say is that it has dual AK4490 DAC chips for balanced sound, which is great, fantastic, but, whatever. What is the sound signature? What does this thing do? And I went through their website, and I've looked at their manual. Excuse me. I'm in dry weather, so sorry about that. And I looked through their website, looked through their manual, and I couldn't find anything. Like, what is the sound signature? So all it says is that it provides you information about the filters, which don't work. Not that my unit doesn't work, it's just that the filters in this device are completely useless. And that's it. You don't get anything. The only information you get about a type of sound character you might find in this thing is if you go into the design concept section, and there they tell you that it has clear sound, right? That's their shtick. That it provides the original sound, provides distortion-free sound. And so I guess we're comparing this as a reference DAC? I don't know. I have no idea what this thing is supposed to do. So let's just get into it, shall we? We have 3 songs to test in the mids today. We have Want You Back by Haim. We have Heartbreak by Chris Cero. And finally, we have a more acoustic song, Why Am I Like This by Orla Gartland. So why don't we start with Want You Back? And I have this plugged in to my Allo Audio S4R, the close back. And let's go to Want You Back. Here we go. Now, the master volume on Windows is 100. The master volume for Spotify is 100. Currently, the volume for the Astell&Kern, give me a second, I'll take a look, is 4 dots. So that's almost a third of the volume here. The S4R is a 32 ohm headphone, and I have to take it up to 4 dots, 4 LEDs a third of the volume for me to be able to say that I hear music. This is still quiet. Now let me hit the high gain button for the filter, right? It does nothing. Yeah, the high gain does absolutely nothing. So the song so far is very quiet. So I'm going to increase the volume. I'm going to tell you at what point this thing actually sounds like it should. Okay, now it sounds loud, and it's at, hold on. It's at 6 LEDs, so half volume. You have to twist the knob over and over again, and you have to be at that half volume mark for the 32 ohm Allo Audio S4R to get loud. That's ridiculous. Now, as far as separation goes in this song, there is good separation amongst the multiple vocalists, or 3 vocalists, the primary and the 2 backup. And I can hear their separate tonalities, but the problem is that the 2 backup vocalists, their voices are really melded together, and it's really hard to pick them out when you have the entire mix playing. The guitar, the piano, the acoustic guitar, and the drum. When all of those things are playing, the primary vocalist is audible, but she's not ahead of any of the other instruments. She's basically shoulder to shoulder with the rest of the instruments, and the backup vocalists are somewhere in the background. And those 2 backup vocalists, their voices are hard to distinguish from each other. And when the 3 of them are singing, that just the 3 vocalists, you can hear the separate tonalities. But as soon as more music comes in, the actual instruments come in, you can't get that separation anymore. There's no harshness at all. I don't hear any noise, at least nothing that jumps out to me. That drum and the acoustic guitar that's supposed to have that low bass rumbly thing is simply not there. It's hard to hear the drum. I mean, it's there, but it has zero impact in the song. And I have to say that the vocals here don't really have any character. So here's the thing. The primary vocalist has such a very, I wouldn't say a visceral voice, because that gets the wrong connotation. The primary vocalist has a very upfront voice. Okay, it's supposed to be, very natural tonality. That means absolutely nothing to you, I know. So the vocals, as they have been presented on the song with other devices, basically what I hear with other devices is that the primary vocalist is ahead of everything else, even when all the mix is playing. And her voice is louder than the other vocalists. She's never drowned out by any of the other instruments. And when she sings, there are little nuances in her voice, that the dragging of certain letters, like the graveliness of her voice, it's just so in your face. I mean, not in a bad way. It's just so nice and natural and almost live acoustic sort of feeling. If it's being presented properly through the right setup, right? You have to have an amplifier and DAC that can actually not interfere. So let's go back to a point of this song that I know where the primary vocalist starts having a gravelly voice. And I think it's around 5 seconds of this song. So I'm going to skip back to 3 seconds and we're going to play it. Yeah, you can still hear around 5 or 6 seconds of the song. You hear her say "we," the word "we," and she drags the letter W out, and it's gravelly. But the weird thing with the L1000 is that it's muted. I mean, you can hear the graveliness, but it's particularly muted, and I would say that's exactly how it presents the vocals on the song throughout. It's not. There's no mid boost, but there is no mid flatness either. I would say it's like a U shape. So it can't be a U shape because the bass is already down, so it just continues the downtrend, I suppose. it just carves out the space where the female vocals should be, and it just sounds so recessed. Even when it's just her, it sounds more muted than it should. It doesn't have that visceral nature to her voice, that in-your-face type of tonality. And furthermore, what it does, it kind of starts smoothing off her vocal range. She doesn't get sibilant, ever. I don't think she ever gets sibilant in any unit that I use the song with. But what the L1000 seems to do is just smooth off her tonality even more. And now when you combine that kind of carved out section for her vocal, and on top of that there's a smoothing effect that's being put on there, it just doesn't sound natural, and it doesn't sound like her voice should. At least that's my opinion. Overall, it's not a bad presentation of the song. It's very, very smooth, especially on the S4R, which will reveal issues in a song, and it will in fact let the amplifier or DAC do its thing without interfering. And so I think it's fairly honest opinion for me to say that the L1000 is messing with the vocals in a way that you may like. You may actually like that smooth tonality, but I really don't. Let's go to Heartbreak by Chris Serro. And Heartbreak is an interesting song because whereas in Want You Back, the vocals are supposed to be up front and ahead of all the other instruments, in Heartbreak, when all the mix is playing, the vocals take a back seat, and they're about 1, 2, or 3 steps behind the actual instruments. And if you have a headphone that is just bass boosted, then the vocals will get destroyed. They'll get overpowered by the bass. And that's the type of sensation I had with the Chord Mojo, which, because it has a warmer tonality, it was hard to hear the vocals. So let's see how the L1000 does with it. Here we go. Very smooth. No peakiness, no harshness at all. And I think it's just that smoothing effect that the L1000 has. And currently, it's just an electric guitar and the multiple vocalists, and I can hear probably 2 vocalists, and they sound so smooth and artificially silky. It's a really weird presentation. I mean, it's not bad. If you hadn't ever heard this song before, and you put these headphones on with the L1000, you go, "Oh, it sounds very smooth." But the smoothing effect is just so obvious to me because I've tested this song on so many other devices that I can tell you it is not natural. Now you have the electric guitar playing higher volume and the bass. The bass it's present, but not doing anything because it's such a limited and it's like a unique bass. It's been unified. And with everything playing, I can still hear the vocals currently. And it's not as closed off and not as muddy as it was on the Mojo. The soundstage is definitely wider than I've heard it on the Mojo. I don't know why I'm comparing the Mojo, but it's sitting right in front of me. Very, very smooth. This is almost like listening on the ZMF headphone, the Icon, because it's so smooth and relaxing. The vocals do a fairly good job in this song. So here's the thing. Because the bass is so light on this device, it's not interfering with the vocals. And so the vocals are not up front. There's still that carved out space for the vocals. But because the bass is not heavy, in fact, it's just been chopped off, it doesn't distort the sound as it has been distorted on the Mojo and almost equally distorted on the i5 Black Label. The L1000 is so lean in the bass that you can still hear the vocals, which I do very much enjoy about that. The downside I would submit is the smoothing effect that the L1000 presents throughout, especially to the female vocals. It's just very, very smooth and glossy type of sensation where they never get peaky, they never get harsh, you don't actually feel the energy behind their vocals. Same way with Want You Back, you never really heard the energy behind their vocal. Okay, so let's go to the last song, and the last song is Why Am I Like This by Orla Gartland. If you haven't heard her songs, please do. She's really good. So let's go to Orla Gartland, and let's listen for a little bit more acoustic type flavor. She has the acoustic guitar currently playing. Very smooth. And her vocal comes in. Again, very smooth. When it's just two instruments, the vocal and, say, a guitar like this, the vocal is incredibly smooth and relaxing, but it also lacks detail. So here's what I mean. Let me stop this and let's go back to about 20 seconds. She has a very sibilant voice. And because there's nothing else here other than the guitar, that sibilance is not hidden, it's not overpowered, it's not distracted by any other frequency, so her sibilance will be present. But the L1000 simply will not allow that sibilance. It just chops it off. Like that higher frequency, at some point, it's chopping it off really, really early so that it's not there. And it sounds a little strange to me because I know that the S sound should continue further, and it's lopped off. Like it's like almost saying, like, bear with me. If I say S's, right? S's, the last part S's, right? You know what I'm saying, S's. But if I was recorded and you were listening to me through the L1000, it would probably sound something like S's. You see that? S's. And so that's a very hyper exaggeration, and it's not how I actually hear this song, but that's the way I'm trying to explain it to you, is that last part of the S, of the sibilance, of that energy is just chopped off. And it's like, what am I missing? There's something not quite right. It's just too smooth. So go back to 20 seconds and let's play again, and I will pay a little more close attention. Yeah. That I just stood there like a ghost. And that's between 25 seconds and 31 seconds. I just stood there like a ghost. And when she says the word ghost, the ST at the end of that word, ghost, there's a muffledness to the end of that word. It sounds more like ghost. You see the difference? You hear the difference? Okay, here's the difference, right? This is the natural way to say ghost. Ready? Ghost. I'll say it again. Ghost. And this is how the L1000 presents it. Ghost. 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 So, sorry for making you listen to that back and forth, but it's just that lopsided S sound. And it's so unnatural. I mean, if you're paying attention, and if you're using this thing for a reference, which I would not recommend, but if you're doing that, then you're going to go, what the hell is going on with her voice? Why does she sound like she has a lisp? She doesn't have a lisp. It's just that the L1000 has a lisp, and the L1000 is making everything sound like it has a lisp. It's a very strange thing. I can't say I like it, because it takes that energy out of the mix, and it's not fun. Let me skip ahead to halfway of the song and keep listening for a few more seconds. Now there's a drum, a guitar, her vocal, and she is not ahead of all of that stuff. She's recessed. And I have to tell you, this song doesn't have any electrical nonsense, right? No electric guitar, no heavy bass, nothing. It's just very simple song. And yet still, her vocal is not ahead of all of that mix. It's either shoulder to shoulder or back. And with everything playing right now, shoulder to shoulder at most on the soundstage. Okay, so let's stop. Let's talk about conclusions. And I'm going through this relatively fast. And the reason I'm going through this relatively fast is because, first of all, I don't know exactly what to look for. Because Astell&Kern doesn't tell us what this thing is supposed to do. Now, if you tell me, like I said at the beginning, if you tell me that this is made for reference, or if this is made for smooth, warm tonality, analog sound, like with the Mojo or the i5, then I could say, now I can spend some time and really figure out what's going on. But Astell&Kern give you nothing. And so what am I looking for? What does this thing do? It does nothing, right? Here's the conclusion. Right, here we go. Ready? Brace yourself. This thing is not good for mids. And here's why. When you start listening to the mids on this device, and you know your song, and you've heard that song on other devices, you will know that the presentation of the mids is incredibly smooth. Now, that may sound like a fantastic deal for you. You may say, I want to have really smooth sound. That's fantastic. Then you can have really smooth sound with the L1000. But in exchange for that smoothness, you don't get off, but the L1000 cuts off the bass. Like, it's so anemic that you will never get the full impact of any bass in any song. Second, the mids are recessed, and they're recessed in such a weird way because not only are the mids taken several steps back, downwards on the frequency range, but the treble is also cut off really early. And so when you mix a recessed mid, a recessed vocal, and you combine that with the lack of energy on purpose from the L1000, guess what? Now that song and that vocalist simply doesn't present the music the way it was recorded. That's my interpretation of it. And so I have a problem with the L1000 if Astell&Kern says the original sound and provides distortion-free sound. I would say it doesn't provide the original sound. I will agree that it's distortion-free. But that's not particularly hard to do, right? I mean, it's not that hard to make a unit that is distortion-free. I don't know why they're advertising it like it's 1982 and, everything is really distortioned. It's not 1982, Astell&Kern. This is 2019. And if you have distortion and noticeable distortion in a unit, you have gone and screwed up somewhere. So I would probably put the whole distortion-free sound gimmick to the side. It means nothing. I would rather focus on the original sound thing. And I don't think it is. I really do not believe that this thing provides original sound. Not in the bass and not in the mids. So if you were thinking about the L1000, I would say that if you really want something smooth, and if you are the type of person that cannot handle any type of sibilance at all, and you want smooth music, then the L1000 might be an option. If you can't find a pair of headphones that fits the bill, and you need a desktop amp DAC, then the L1000. Now I'll say that the L1000 soundstage is average, and it's not closed off like it is on the i5 or the Mojo. So you get average soundstage, and maybe that's all you need. But for $900, you can do a lot better. And maybe if you put in a little bit more money, you could do a hell of a lot better. Okay, I hope that this has been of some help. I hope that anybody who's been thinking about buying the Acro L1000, if you really want it, do yourself a favor, don't buy it at $900. It's definitely not worth that price for the multitude of reasons we'll talk about in the conclusion. If you've enjoyed this content, if you like my analysis, if you like anything about my channel, maybe you will consider, and I hope you will consider joining me on Patreon. I currently have 5 patrons, and I am so thankful for each and every one of them. They are fantastic and wonderful and giving in order to give me some of their hard-earned money once per month. And if you do enjoy what I do, then hopefully you will also consider, and in fact act upon that consideration, to give me a little bit of money per month. And the reason is, I have people asking me every day to review products I don't have. And I don't get products from companies. I don't get sponsorships. I don't get anything like that, anything that other reviewers get. I don't have that type of setup. I would prefer to buy things myself with my own money so that I can give you unbiased interpretation of what I hear. And if you feel as if that you like that, maybe you can help. Thank you so much to all my I was going to say reviewers. I mean my viewers, not reviewers, viewers. Thank you all so much to my viewers and my subscribers. And if you are a viewer but haven't subscribed yet, maybe you'll think about subscribing. Thank you once again. Have a wonderful night. And in the next video, probably tomorrow, we will wrap this up and do the treble response of the L1000 and then do a conclusory video. Thank you so much once again. Have a good and peaceful night.